When I first committed to doing a podcast after 10 years of people trying to convince me, I thought, well, who am I gonna do a podcast with? And I thought, well, it would be a good start to do it with musicians, comics, sports figures, entrepreneurs, weirdos, wackos, and nut bars. I'm not sure exactly where my guest today fits in with those. Craig Gass has agreed to be my guest on today's podcast.
Reluctantly.
Today's podcast brought to you by the Clayton Bellamy Foundation. ClaytonBellamyFoundation.org, supporting education and community-based programs in the province of Alberta by providing financial support to arts programs in need and by advocating the benefits and importance of arts education. ClaytonBellamyFoundation.org.
Reluctantly.
That's a good combination. I am a weirdo, a nut job, a sports fan, a comedian, and someone who sneaks into concerts all the time. So I think that fits everything.
You know, the stories that you have, just the ones that I've been involved in are ridiculous. Never mind the ones that I have read about, seen on TV, or just seen in post-Super Bowl interviews. I could be sitting there watching TV and I go, what the fuck is going on? Craig Gass is right there. Or the pre-Super Bowl interviews where you've gotten into the fray and started asking the players who are going to be featured in the big game some questions and stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of moments that have happened that and stories about my life that don't sound real to people. And I've actually started recording interviews with people for a podcast called Sounds Crazy, but I swear this is true. And living at Eddie Van Halen's house, living with Mitch Hedberg, being on the field at the Super Bowl, hanging out at NASA, being with Bill Murray when the Cubs won the World Series, all these things. There's so many crazy stories, and I'm not just telling the stories, I'm getting all the witnesses. And some of it's easy to find. I mean, you can see the video of me and Bill Murray at the World Series. You can see the video of me at Woodstock with Limp Bizkit when they're burning everything down. You can see me standing on stage when Fred Durst jumps out in the audience. I didn't think anyone was going to notice me there. I just know that Fred had jumped off the stage into the crowd, and the security in the pit went into the crowd to get Fred. So the security on stage went into the pit. So there was no security on stage. And I had this shitty little disposable camera. And I thought, oh, no one will see me. And I didn't realize I was walking out into a live broadcast, standing in the middle of the stage. And it's just like, get off my TV. And yeah, dude, I got to tell you, one of the first interviews I just did was for this crazy story that when I was 15, 16 years old, Whitesnake was one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. They were coming to town to do a show at the local arena in Tucson, where I was living at the time. And a friend of mine whose sister was a housekeeping person at a major resort in town said, dude, Whitesnake's in town today for their show tomorrow. They're staying at my sister's hotel. And I had my mom drop me off at the hotel to go look for Whitesnake. And I ran into this guy, Rudy Sarzo, and he was, I mean, it makes me cringe when I think about it now, but he was nice enough to talk to me for hours. And that's not just in my mind that he was nice, because at the end of several hours, this guy said, hey, I got to go, but do you have a car? And I lied and said, yeah, I got a car. Why? What do you need? And he said, well, tomorrow before my gig, a couple of the guys from Whitesnake, we wanted to go shopping because the tour is about to end, and I need to get some comforters and sheets. And I heard about this really great place for bedding that's a few miles from here. I knew exactly where he was talking about, and my goal was, oh my God, if I could get this guy in a car and bring him to the mall where all my friends hang out, where we all smoke weed, and walk around with Whitesnake, that would be amazing. And long story short, we ended up bringing Whitesnake to the mall and got to walk. Oh man, it was insane, total pandemonium. And then they gave us tickets and passes to the concert. We had this incredible night. 15 years later, I'm a stand-up comedian now. I'm on the Howard Stern show. I was in Los Angeles for some big rock concert at the Forum, and they had this room called the Forum Club. It's like a VIP room that it's where Jack Nicholson famously hangs out at during halftime of the Lakers games. And all these celebrities are in there. I get a tap on the shoulder. I turn around. It's Rudy Sarzo and his wife, Rebecca. And he said, "Craig, I'm sorry to bother you. My name's Rudy Sarzo. I'm a musician. I play with whoever he was playing with at the time. He's played with a whole bunch of huge bands.
Probably
Ozzy,
Quiet Riot.
Quiet Riot,
or Ozzy or Black Sabbath.
Ozzy, Whitesnake, Dio." And Rudy goes, "This is my wife, Rebecca. We're both huge fans of yours. We listen to you all the time." And I went, "Rudy, you're not going to believe this, but do you remember a 15-year-old kid in Tucson taking you shopping at the mall?" And he went, "For comforters and sheets?" And I said, "For comforters and sheets." And he went, "Craig, I'm so proud of you." And I went, couldn't believe it. So yeah, there's hundreds of stories like that. Hundreds and hundreds of stories like that. So the idea is not only to tell my stories that sound ridiculous and sound completely untrue, but also to tell the stories of friends of mine who also have incredible stories that I'm aware of. So
the Rudy Sarzo story for shopping for comforters and sheets, I mean, that's a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure right there. You know how they made the machine from Kreischer and all of his shenanigans going to his, how many years of school did he go to? 7, 9, or whatever it was. Yeah. But I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't make a movie out of just that.
Yeah, I went to school the next day because I didn't have a car for another 15 years. I wouldn't get a car until I was in my 30s. I was broke as shit. And so I went to high school the next day and I said, "Who wants to take Whitesnake shopping? I need someone that has a car that will take Whitesnake shopping." And my friend Brian, who was a fan of The Cure and Depeche Mode, he goes, "I don't even like Whitesnake, but I'll take him shopping. I don't give a shit." He's like, I don't care. He goes, "Yeah, you want them to put in my car?" And he had this shitty little car. That guy, by the way, went on to be a pastor. He's like huge in the church. And I had him in the interview with me and Rudy to reconnect all the dots and then also connect those two because Rudy's had a really strong faith in his life. So it was really cool to have them talk about their faith and how their faith has helped them in life. And I'm kind of unsure where I'm at with that. And so it was kind of neat to have that dialogue. And that's what, long form conversations like this are made for. But you're right, man. That could absolutely be a movie.
What were the other two members of the band? It wasn't David Coverdale?
No, it was, you know what? I think it was just Adrian. And then the next day when we picked him up, we said, "Hey, where's Adrian?" And he goes, "Oh, I told him about it." And he backed out. And in hindsight, I'm realizing that as a grown man, that if I'm touring with another comedian and he's like, "Yeah, I met a guy who has a car." "Oh, who is he?" "Oh, he's a 15-year-old that was at the hotel yesterday." He's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I can go shopping when I get home." You know what I mean? Like I'm sure Adrian had better sense to be like, "Yeah, that sounds kind of weird." And it's so funny because over the years, you come to find out that everybody's got a Rudy story. He's such a kind person, but my God, that wasn't the only run-in I had with him. I've had other run-ins in remote parts of the world where I was in Kennewick, Washington, and there's a mall. It's like the one place that has a Starbucks in town. And I just got done doing local radio in Kennewick, and I was walking up to the Starbucks, and I saw there was one guy sitting in front of the Starbucks. The mall hadn't opened yet. And the guy goes, "Craig?" And I looked over and I went, "Rudy?" Rudy Sarzo. In the middle of Kennewick, he was playing with Blue Oyster Cult at the fair that night. So, yeah, that was crazy, man. It's crazy. But yeah, those stories they're insane. I found myself in a lot of weird and crazy situations, and I love a good story, man. I love telling a good story. I love hearing a good story, So that's what these platforms are for.
I think deep down, I was kind of reluctant to start, hence the name of the podcast.
Because of what? Just because you just didn't want to involve any more energy into putting something out, or?
There was the extra work that I figured that was involved with it, but at the same time, I thought, people are saying, "Oh, you should do a podcast." I said, "Well, I do one every day. It's called a radio show." But
right.
I know that now that they're vastly different. So, but
yeah,
you and I have had that relationship on the radio show. That's how it came to be, and that's how we came to know each other. So.
Yeah, man, it's one of my stories that I tell happened in your studio. I don't know if you mind me telling the story
No,
about
go ahead.
I was in your studio. We had just wrapped up for the morning and we're all like usual. I don't shut up when a show is happening. Then they go, all right, go see Craig Gass this weekend, blah, blah, blah. We turn the mics off and I still don't shut up. We just keep talking. We're sitting in there, we're laughing, we're talking. Door opens, a guy walks in. One of the corporate guys says to one of your co-hosts, hey, need you in my office for a second. And I went, sounds like someone's about to get fired. And we all laughed. And then he walked out. And then you and I kept talking and talking. He came back in and said, well, guess that's it. I'm out of here. And I went, shut up. Is that real? Are you fired? And he goes, just got fired. He walked out. I was like, holy fuck. I was joking. And that's exactly what happened. Hey, boss needs to talk to you for a second. I said it because radio is so brutal. It's so brutal. Some of the easily the worst firing stories I've ever heard in my life were in radio. Because there's this thing about radio where you have an on-air personality. You need to fire people before they get a chance to get to a microphone again. You don't want them. You don't want them to know that they're going to be fired when they have the power of a microphone. I'm sure you've heard that famous viral clip of a girl, sounds like she's at a top 40 station, and she just shits on everybody at the building and says, well, I found out that they're going to try to get me out of here, but fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And she goes off on a rant. I'm out of here. I quit this bitch. And so they don't want people to have access to that. So the way it's very similar to a story I heard Jerry Seinfeld say in some interview about how I didn't realize Jerry Seinfeld had a recurring character on the show Benson in the 70s. And he would fly from New York to LA every week to do his character on Benson.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. And he got let go, but nobody told him. And he flew to LA and he's on the sound stage and there's no script with his name on it. And he's walking around going, has anybody seen my script? I don't see my script. Where is my script? Have you
What's the deal?
Yeah. And everybody's going, I don't know. Like nobody wants to say anything. And then somebody goes, Jerry, what are you doing here? And he goes, I'm looking for my script. And they said, oh, we let you go. You're not on the show anymore. And Jerry goes, oh, well, then I'm leaving. I think I'm going to go then. I don't want to stick around. I think, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. He had a one-man dialogue with himself. Everyone was like, yep, I can right over there. Yeah, you know what? Then I don't think I'm going to stick around then. I'm probably going to get out. Like he was trying to control something. He didn't have any control over this. It's like he was trying to assert some kind of control and say, well, then I think I'm going to go. I was like, yeah, see you.
So that was Benson, which was a spinoff of Soap, right? Was there a better show than Soap back in the day?
Soap was before my time.
Was it?
In terms of getting into more like adult themed like shows, I'm guessing. I mean, like around that time, I'm still at the age where Happy Days is really speaking to me, and the Fonz, and so I never got into Soap, but the similarities of that story with people getting fired in radio. I mean, there's I remember being in Buffalo, New York, and hearing this incredible story about these. I guess it was a heritage rock station, had been around for decades. This local rock station in Buffalo, and there were signs all over the station saying this Friday at 6 p.m. because the office closes at 5. This Friday at 6 p.m. mandatory meeting for everybody at the station at the Mexican restaurant down the street. So all the salespeople, all the on-air people, everyone had to meet at the radio station or at the Mexican restaurant at 6 p.m. And so Friday at 5 p.m., everybody clocks out. They head down to the Mexican restaurant. And at 6 p.m., the ownership group gets in front of everybody and says, hey, So we know you've heard some rumors that have been going around, and it's true. Starting on Monday, we're going Spanish. And everyone just started laughing. Like, you brought us to a Mexican restaurant to tell us that we're going Spanish? What the hell? So people are making jokes. They're like, people are pointing at the wait staff and saying, "Is this our new morning show?" And so everybody's making jokes. And then, but these guys, they don't back down. They go, "No, it's not a joke. This is true." And then finally, someone goes, "Wait a minute. So we're all fired? If we're all fired, I actually have to go back to the station because I have stuff from my home at my desk, so I need to go back to my work desk." And they said, "Oh, we actually took care of that." And people started walking in with boxes. At 5 p.m., when everybody clocked out, they went through the entire building and just threw everybody's shit in a box. And like here's Terry, and then here's all your shit from your desk. Here's Craig, here's all your shit from this desk.
You're talking about, you just said shit in a box. That reminds me of a great firing story from radio I heard. This guy got fired from radio. I'm not going to get any more details in it. The guy got fired from radio. It was back in the day when the copywriters, they didn't have computers or anything like that. The copywriters are people writing commercials. And they had the electric typewriter with the ball in it. The ball, you hit it and the ball turns around and clacks the roller with the paper on it.
Yeah.
He went up to the desk and took a shit.
Holy shit.
So,
wow.
I can't imagine when the person turned that on.
Now that we're talking about this, there's other stories. I'm remembering the station that I started at in Seattle. There was a firing there where they had everybody was brought in for this mandatory meeting. Because there was new ownership group. It was a new ownership group that came in and said, "Hey, we wanted to get you guys here and talk to you about got some new ideas we're really excited about. We're hoping you guys can get excited about it too as we move forward with this new company." Real quick, you got a piece of paper and said, "David Bell? You're David? Okay. Christy Langdon is Christy. You're Christy. Okay. And Steven, I don't know how to pronounce this last name. Steven, are you here? You're Steven. Okay. Yeah. We're going to be letting you guys go." And their head, like, I get. And then there was this crazy thing that happened where they said to everybody else, they said, "Hey, listen," there was people, they said, "We don't want to fire you, but we're going to be paying less money, but we want to give you the first chance to reapply for your job for less money." I mean, yeah, but the most brutal, I'm sorry to go off on this tangent, but I got to just say one more. The most brutal thing I've ever heard in radio was a show that a bunch of friends of mine were on, and the show was like 6 or 7 cast members. It was a massive show. And the contract is coming up, and the main guy on the show, it's his name. It's his name, and the show has this massive supporting cast. He says, "Hey, contract's coming up. Do you guys want to talk about?" And it's Clear Channel, which became iHeart. And they go, "Yeah, we'll get back to you. We'll let you know." And then it's getting closer and closer. So he tells his agent, like, "Hey, see if you can get a better offer." So he gets a better offer from the competing company in town with a pay increase for all 6, 7 people on the show. And he goes to Clear Channel and says, "Hey, I got this offer. This is how much they want to pay me. What do you guys say?" And they said, we'll crunch some numbers and we'll get back to you." And then his last show before Christmas. And anytime you say last show before Christmas, every radio guy knows exactly where the story's going. His last show before Christmas, the program director said, "Hey, I need to speak with you in my office. And hey, so we've been crunching some numbers and we've decided we're not going to match the offer for you." And he went, "Okay, so we're done. I guess that's..." And she said, But we did match the offer for the other 6 people on the show. And all 6 of his co-hosts had negotiated behind his backs. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, it was insane. Totally insane.
We'll be right back.
This podcast brought to you by The Terry Evans Show with Pete Potipko from 5 till 9 Monday through Friday on Edmonton's Classic Rock, K97. If you are in the Edmonton market, listen at 97.3 on your FM dial. Otherwise, listen live at k97.ca.
Reluctantly.
All right, well, you're talking about radio stuff. Let's talk about your radio stuff.
right.
You have been on the prestigious Terry Evans Show a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, probably led the way and set a path to you being on other radio shows all over North America and the world, for that matter. And then, luckily, getting that big gig on the Howard Stern.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm back on the show now for the first time in 20 years, which is so weird.
You were when Jackie left. It was you were in the running to become like the Jackie the Joke Man sort of thing, but Artie ended up in that position. Is that not right?
Yeah, I started contributing to the show. I started doing stuff on the show in 1995. I would call in. I sent them a tape of the stuff I was doing in Seattle. And then Gary called me up and said, "Hey, these voices are really good. Like you're Sam Kinison. We actually thought it was Sam Kinison. That's how fucking good it was, man. It was really good." And I said, "Well, man, I'd love to work for you guys someday." So I started calling in as Sam Kinison, calling in live from the gates of hell. It was really dark. Like anytime an asshole died, like someone that we could all agree is like, yeah, that guy was an asshole. Like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'd be on the air the next day going, "Hey, guys. It's Sam Kinison. I'm down here at the gates of hell. And Jeffrey Dahmer just got down here. This guy's already looking at my ass like it's a TV." Like it was really dark. And then I started doing more voices on the show. I started doing different celebrity voices. And then March of 2001, there was this drama building with Jackie Martling as his contract was about to end.
Right.
It had been going on for years, what was going on with him. And then I woke up one day to 3 messages on my voicemail. And the first message was like, "Boop. Hey, man, you got to call Howard Stern. He said he's looking for brand new comedians. Boop. Dude, I don't know if you listen to Howard right now. He said he's looking for fresh comedians to replace Jackie. Boop. Hey, Craig, it's Gary Delabate. Call me as soon as you get this." And I was like, "Holy shit." And I called up Gary and I go, "Hey, Gary, it's Craig Gass." And he said, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, "Oh, he's never asked me how I was." I was like, "I'm doing good." I heard Jackie Martling put the show, and he goes, "Yes, he did." And I was like, "Is that what this call is about?" And he goes, "Yes, it is." And I was like, couldn't believe it. And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he goes, he just wants you to come in for 2 days, just see if there's any chemistry, So I came in for 3 days, and we just, like, first day, we just clicked right away. And then that 2-day audition turned into 2 days a week, every week for like the next 9 months, 8 months. What was it? Started in March, and then it was like November when they made the decision.
Wow.
And it changed my life. I was able to pay my bills and my mom's bills for the rest of from then till now. And but this weird thing happened. Well, they narrowed it down. I started bringing in all these other comedians. I brought in Kimmel and Adam Carolla and Richard Jenny and Doug Stanhope and Jeff Ross. Jim Florentine was a pretty regular guy in there. And then they ended up narrowing it down to me and Artie. I started coming in 2 days a week. Artie started coming in 2 days a week. And then Wednesday, they would rotate somebody different every Wednesday. And then they finally made the decision to go with Artie. And then I started getting offered acting roles. And then it just, I've never had to have a real job since. And then almost 2 years now, Howard had somebody reach out to me to say, "Hey, would you ever be interested in working with Howard again?" And I thought, I didn't even think of that even as being a possibility. So every couple of months, he'll have me on the show to sit in for a few days as different voices. And it's great. He's been great to me.
When that started up in '95, you said he was still on terrestrial radio. Was that so? He's been. When did he go to satellite? What year was that?
2006, I
4?
want to say.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Yeah, 2006. It was that date was like burned in my brain because I kept advertising 10906 or something like that. But I think it was 2006 when he started at terrestrial, and I'm sorry, at satellite. I mean, and then he's been there ever since, and now he's 70, 71. I don't know how long he wants to keep going. Yeah, I mean, he changed everything. I mean, he changed radio. He changed my life. You know, I brought this up a couple months ago on the air with him. I used to call him every year on March 15th, which is the anniversary of the day that he let me start sitting next to him. And I would say, hey, Howard, it's March 15th. It's 6 years since you let me start sitting next to you. Just want to say thank you because you changed my life and I've been able to pay my bills and my mom's bills. I would call him every year and say that. That's the only time I would call him, once a year. I would call him, leave him a message and say thank you, and show him some gratitude. And one day I'm in Cleveland or Minneapolis. I was somewhere in the Midwest and I had my Sirius XM radio with me. And Howard's going, oh, what else is going on? Oh, Craig Gass, leave me the fuck alone. Why do you call me all the time? I don't know why I gave Craig Gass my phone number. This guy calls me all the time, bothering me. And then Gary comes in and goes, I told him to leave you alone. I don't know why he keeps bothering me. He goes, yeah, we got to get him off my back. And then all my shows, people come up and go, dude, that was a great show. Fucking awesome, man. And dude, stop calling Howard Stern, man. Leave him alone. I'm like, I call him once a year. It's once a year. So I finally got to say that to his face a couple months ago. And he said, well, let's be honest, Craig. Once a year is a bit. And I was like,
giant pain in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. So I listen, man. I understand. But from my point of view, as a guy who never finished high school, even though I went to high school for a long time, him giving me the opportunity to just be myself for a living I'm just forever indebted to him. And it's because of him that I ended up on Sex and the City.
Yeah.
I mean, they told me, they said, I was on the air talking about a relationship I just gotten out of. And they called me up and said, hey, we heard you today on the Howard Stern show. And we think you would play a really good insecure guy on Sex and the City. And I was like, all right, it's kind of a weird backslap, but all right. King of Queens.
Well, you were Miranda's donut eating boyfriend or something, right?
Super insecure, which is what led to my eating disorder. I overeat to compensate for my insecure, something like, I was very thin. It was easy for me to play the insecure part, but also there was this side thing where I love to perform on her. And every time I perform on her, she has such a huge reaction that she just keeps exploding all over my face. And I'm such a sensitive guy that I just want to hold her and kiss her afterwards, which freaks her out because my face is always covered in Miranda. And I didn't even tell my mom about that. Like everything, I love showing my mom, like, not only being on TV, but she always had TV Guide. She bought the TV Guide at the supermarket every week. So my name being in TV Guide was a huge kick for her. My mom's deaf. My whole family's deaf. So being on TV shows that had closed captions, she loved being able to watch and follow my career. But I didn't tell her about Sex and the City. It was like a year went by and she said, why do my friends say that you're on HBO? And I was like, oh. So I pulled up the episode. We watched it together. And she watched the whole thing. And as we got to the credits, she just went, my baby. And I was, oh my God. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Yeah. It was great. Mm-hmm.
With your parents, your sister was also deaf as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you learned to speak by watching television?
Mm-hmm. I would watch TV and I'd copy all the voices I heard on TV. So I always had a knack for doing voices because I was always doing different voices. I was always copying the voices I heard on TV. I couldn't learn how to talk for my family. I learned how to talk by watching TV.
That's crazy, but it makes total sense. I mean, everybody learns to talk from their parents. So
Oh, yeah.
if you don't have that opportunity because of a disability, then you make do, right?
Yeah, and you start to notice very clearly how everybody emulates their. I actually, if you can't get a voice down, listen to somebody's parents. Listen to somebody's parents or some of their kids, because everyone learns how to talk like their kids, or like the kids try to sound like their parents. And I would notice as a kid, call my best friend up, and someone would pick up the phone that I thought was my best friend, and they could be somebody of the opposite sex in the same family. They've all learned how to pick up the phone and go, mellow, like those little nuances, you know. And because I didn't have anything to learn from, I had this open canvas to learn how to paint in my voice, and then I would learn people's voice. I would learn parents' voices, so that when we would all get together on the weekend and get shit faced, I'd go, let me call Terry just to, hey Terry, it's Boyd. Yeah, I got the boys with me. We're just having a pizza party, and we're just watching sports this weekend. Yeah, I'll bring them over tomorrow. All right, let's get some Coke. Let's do it. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I could do it. I could pull it off. I could manage to sound at least like a passable adult, if not one of our parents. And yeah, I definitely used that skill for bad.
Did you call into school to let the office know that somebody wasn't coming in today?
Dude, when I was in elementary school, I was always like the teacher's worst nightmare. I wasn't like I just was class clown, but I would drive teachers out of their fucking mind. I mean, they wanted to murder me. I wanted to know where the line was, and I would try to get as close to the line as possible to see how close I get them to just lose it. It would always result in like, all right, you know what? Brought to the principal's office, and the principal would say, we need your mother to come down here to discuss this. And I'd go, okay, well, my mom's deaf, so you need an interpreter, and I know sign language. I would show up and sit in a room with all my teachers and my principal, and they'd go, okay, tell your mother that the reason why we're here is because you are having some behavior issues. And I'd go, said that although they think I'm a very good student, there's some small things we need to work on. And my mom would go, they'd go, okay, now tell her. And fucking everything was an edit right in front of their faces. I was editing right in front of their faces and getting away with fucking murder, absolute murder.
Did you ever get caught? Because I mean, that's at some point they had to have brought someone in who could understand or sign themselves.
You would think, but like, you know, nobody. Yeah, I mean, with the internet now, you could figure that part out, and obviously, you know, just with a quick internet search, you can find sign language interpreters. You'd have to pay for them, you know. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to pay the fee, then you can actually catch me. And I've done shows where when my mom and my sister come to see me, I'll hire a sign language interpreter. And my mom's been gone for almost 2 years now, but I remember doing a show, and then I would turn my back to the audience and I would keep talking because the woman has to sign it. And I'd say, I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Mrs. Gaff, but your son is so handsome. I think I'm in love with your son. And my back would be to the audience. And my mom would just sitting there going, like this interpreter is looking right at her going, I'm in love with your son. Yeah. I mean, God, I mean, I feel bad thinking about that in hindsight, but there's so much comedy there. Although at the time in school, I'm just trying to just not get in trouble. So I just thought if I softened it, like, hey, listen, we're here because, you know, I just try to make it sound like I don't even know what the big deal is. They're just saying that I'm a great student, but I just got some small things. I don't know what the fuck.
So you talk about getting caught. What's the situation that happened with Gene Simmons? Because your impression of Gene Simmons is bang on, and it has fooled me because I remember you phoning the radio show. We picked up on it after you started trying to hawk some Kiss coffin or condom, or I don't know what the hell you were, kissonline.com or whatever. But you must have a story about you and Gene Simmons being on at the same time, or him being a guest and you phoning in or something like that, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he showed up to confront me live on the air in New York on the Howard Stern show. I've been doing the impression on the air for a while. It happened during a commercial break. I was telling Howard some funny stories about Gene, and he was like, "Man, you got to hear these stories that Craig was telling me about. Craig's a fan of Kiss." And he was telling me some funny stories about how funny Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons are. It's funny because I just wrapped up, probably in the next month or so. I'm putting out 2 comedy specials in the next couple months. The first one, believe it or not, is me just making fun of Kiss for an hour. That's the whole show. The entire comedy special is me making fun of Kiss. But it all starts with this story about how I started doing this impression of Gene on the Howard Stern show. And then the only way to really use it is to wait for a music guest to come in. And then I would constantly interrupt the music guest as Gene Simmons, and I would try to sell them shitty Kiss products. And it was really fun because of the way some artists didn't know how to react to it, or if they were on the phone, they thought it was real. And people started believing that it was really Gene. And it was amazing how many people actually believed that it was really Gene. And then all of a sudden, Gary walked in one day and said, "Hey guys, we got a problem. Gene Simmons just walked in the building. He wants to beat the fuck out of Craig right now." And I was like, "What? He's here?" Like, "Yeah, he's here." And I was like, "Well, we're not going to let him upstairs though, right? We're not going to let him come." And he goes, "Well, all the security guards are big Kiss fans. I've already let him in the building." And I was like, "Holy shit, he's on his way," you know? And then Gene came in and started selling. He confronted me. Then he seemed to really take it in stride and started selling shit. And that's when he first mentioned that there was a Kiss casket. And I was just kind of in awe of what he was saying. And I just kept interrupting him and saying, "Howard, can I just tell you one more thing about the casket? For $1 million, I will throw Ace Frehley into the casket and you can spend eternity spooning with Kiss." "Shut up. No, you shut up. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you." Everyone at home is like, "Who the fuck is talking? I don't even know who's talking." But, and then this weird thing happens the day after the confrontation. I get a call from Kiss's management company, McGee Entertainment. And they said, "Hey, we represent Kiss. We wanted to reach out to you to tell you that our singer, Paul Stanley, is your biggest fan." And I said, "Fuck out of it. Really? Paul Stanley knows who I am?" And they said, "Hey, don't tell anybody this, but Paul Stanley loves when anybody makes fun of Gene Simmons." "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah. As a matter of fact, he's going to call you. He wants to offer you a gig." And the gig was, would you be interested in performing with Kiss on the Kiss Cruise? We're doing this really cool event. It's going to be 3,000 of the biggest Kiss fans from around the world, and we want you to perform. And I was like, "Look, you want me to do stand-up or you want me to introduce the band? Like, what do you want me to do?" And he said, "Well, let me ask you a question. How many jokes do you have about Gene?" And I said, "Literally hours." And he went, "You got the gig." And I was like, "Really? That's it? Just make fun of Gene? That's it?" And then I went on the Kiss Cruise, and then, that's where I upset all the Kiss fans there. It was on the Kiss Cruise. And because I made a joke that everybody took seriously. I took command with one of the employees who let me have access to this microphone. It's the announcement microphone that goes throughout the whole ship. And everybody on the ship woke up to this announcement. Bong! "Hey, everybody, this is Paul Stanley, and this is Gene Simmons from Kiss. And we have a very important announcement. Do not panic, but we have a very important announcement about the Kiss Cruise." At that moment, my friends on the ship said that all the fans had stopped in their tracks and were looking at the speakers and smiling until the next words that came out of my mouth. "We've just hit an iceberg," which, keep in mind, when I say we've just hit an iceberg, we're in the middle of the fucking Bahamas. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for you as an intelligent person to go, "This ship's going down. We're in the Bahamas."
But do not panic, because KISS is going to take care of everybody. We actually have 3 packages to get you off the ship. First, we have the platinum package, $5,000. We'll put you in a life raft. You have your own private photo and medical care from KISS. Then we have the diamond package. Isn't that right, Paul?
That's right, the diamond package.
For $10,000, where we throw you in the ocean with Tommy and Eric, and then KISS floats by on a raft. We do a private acoustic show. Everything I said was stupid. But apparently, several KISS fans ran to the employees and said, so KISS is charging us to get off the boat? Is that what's going on? But KISS, guys in KISS were great with it. They thought it was hilarious. Thank God.
We'll be right back.
This podcast, reluctantly, brought to you by Just for Feet. Just for Feet, just around the corner from the Sally Ann. No pants, no hats, no jackets. None of that stuff's for feet. Just for feet. Don't come to us looking for gloves.
Reluctantly.
I can't remember if it's the last time we were together or if we saw each other since then, but it wasn't the No Repeat Weekend Metallica concert series. It was a previous Metallica show in Edmonton at Commonwealth Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in the stands with my son Riley, who is a professional drummer. He says, oh, look, there's Lars. I said, oh, where? Like, Lars could come and press his ass against the window. I wouldn't know who he was. You know, I don't know what the guys from Metallica look like, except for the lead singer guy. He kind of looks like my brother-in-law. So Riley points out Lars. He goes, oh, you said, wearing the black shirt there. I said, oh, okay. He goes, yeah. When I was at Berkeley for the 5-week summer program, his son was in the program with me too. I turned to my son and I said, are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
I said, you go to Berkeley for 5 weeks with Lars Ulrich's son, and you didn't even think to mention it to your dad, who's the classic rock radio guy?
Wow. No shit. Small world. Oh, I love that.
And then about 5 minutes later, I got a text from you saying, hey, do you want to come down and watch the Metallica show from the lighting tent?
Lighting board. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So that's
right.
where we want. I have pictures of the back of your head from me standing behind you.
Yeah.
Well, I have one at the front of your head too, but
yeah,
from us watching the Metallica show in that
I
lighting
remember you
tent.
saying that to me. Yeah, my buddy Rob has been doing their lights for I think 15 years now. I just saw him. I missed the entire Metallica tour, this 2-night stadium run, and finally got to catch it in Minneapolis and hung out again at Rob's lighting thing. I brought some friends, and Rob was kind enough to go, hey, so let me just show you what I'm looking at. These are the lights. This is how this is as the show's running. And he's like, now, he goes, watch this on this song. He goes, this song has a fire effect, and it's supposed to look like a glowing fire. And he goes, that's why you'll notice, like, we have lights in the stage on top of the lights coming from these posts, and the lights on the stage flicker to give a burning look. And he was just showing us how there's lights in the drum kit. It was amazing. Like the amount of thought that goes into, and it's closely coordinated with Lars, who's very hands-on about everything about the band. It's very name-droppy, but a friend of mine is in my last comedy special who plays guitar for Pearl Jam. His name's Mike McCready, and I said to Mike once, I think that there's always the same kind of relationships in every band. You'll always see the same personality types. And he goes, really? Like what? And I go, like there's always the one guy, and it's usually only one guy in a band who will do anything for the band. Like they'll stay up all night making flyers. They'll put like posters all around town. They'll call the local newspapers to try to get coverage. And he goes, oh, that's Jeff. That's our bass player for sure. And I go, then there's the alcoholic/drug addict. And he goes, oh, that's me. That's me. He goes, I'm a drug addict. I mean, he's sober, but but yeah. So, but yeah, that's Lars very hands-on on that, on the lighting thing. And it's a neat thing to watch. I've made so many friends in all my years of traveling and in the music business and in comedy, that I've met so many people who couldn't quite get in with the thing they wanted to do. So they thought, well, maybe if I could have a life being close to it. And I've met so many people. I have so many friends in the music industry who run the gamut from working in rock clubs to being in a band that performs in stadiums, and everything in between, to photographers, agents, technicians who handle the instruments, to lighting guys, to just people who just love this thing so much they just want to be close to it. And all of them are incredibly happy because they're doing what they love. And I get a kick out of anyone who's pursuing what they love and going after it, because it's a big risk, man. It's a big risk to get. I was just talking to a guy last week who lives in Vegas. His name's DJ Ashba. He was in Guns N' Roses for like 10 years. He's been in a couple other bands. He was in, what was it, Sixth Sense or 6 a.m.? Sixth Sense was the radio show that I co-hosted with Nikki Sixx's band. And DJ Ashba has a story about, he was like the best guitar player in his town in Indiana. And he was like, maybe I should go to LA and try to make a run for it. And he was like, and he got a U-Haul and he packed all his stuff in the U-Haul, and he got in the U-Haul and he started driving out of Indiana. He started driving through Chicago, and then he pulled over on the side of the road and started crying. And he was like, I should go home. And he had a 30, I think I remember it being like a 30 or 60 minute moment on the side of the road. What am I doing? I should just go home. But if I go home, I'll never know what was going to happen. And then he just put the car in drive and just went into the unknown and took one of the biggest risks of his life. And it paid off. That one gig with Axl, he told me he had a monthly salary, and his monthly salary was insane. So he can now never worry about having to get a job at the supermarket. He can do it. He can do whatever he wants now for the rest of his life.
So a lot of your connections to some of the bands that you end up hanging out with or going to see or whatever, it ends up being through the guys who are the lighting guy or the gear guy or, you know, the stage hands or stuff like that. And then you end up through association, getting to know band members and stuff. Like, don't you know the Pearl Jam guys?
Yeah, I've known the Pearl Jam guys for a long time. I'm going to see them in 2 weeks. We're hanging out in New Zealand and in Australia. It started when I fucking love music so much, and I would go to concerts. I would go to every concert. I would go see Dio. I would go see Journey. I would see Metallica. I would go see Depeche Mode. I love concerts. I love going to shows. I love seeing live shows, and I love music. And I was so obsessed with it that I would hang out at the top of the loading dock and just watch them break down, you know, load the trucks up and stuff. And it dawned on me, I shouldn't say this, but it dawned on me that if you wait long enough, it's usually about midnight, all those yellow shirt guys will clock out at midnight and they'll leave behind a skeleton crew. You can just walk right back in the building through the loading dock, and I would go back, and I wasn't trying to meet the band. I was actually going to see these people who are working for the artist and saying, hey, what do you do? Like, what's your job? And how did you get this job? And most adults do not want to talk to a 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid, but some of them would see that it was a sincere thing that I was wanting to talk to them. So some of them would talk to me and explain to me what their job was, and started making friends over the years. And if you're really good at your job, if you're a really good sound guy, if you're a really good tour manager, you will work forever. You will go from a massive Metallica tour to a Beyonce tour, to a Green Day tour, to a Harry Styles tour. You will just work just in perpetuity. And so these guys that I made friends with, and girls that I made friends with, whenever they would come through town, they would say, hey, I'm in town, blah, 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 if you want to come out to the show. And they start introducing me to more of their friends. And then sometimes the artists. And then it just became this thing where I got to know a lot of my favorite artists. Now, what was interesting is when I started doing stand-up, I would bring VHS copies of my shows and give it to all my roadie buddies and say, hey, put these on your bus. And my stand-up would end up spreading out on all these major concert tours around the world. And when I started getting on the Howard Stern show and started making a name for myself, I would get phone calls from people going like, dude, I got a crazy story for you. I work with Aerosmith now. The band was talking about you in catering today. And they're like, have you heard that guy? And I go, that's my friend Craig. Yeah, dude, he lives in New York. He's a friend of mine. Like, well, ask him if he wants to come to the show when we get there. And it's like, so do you want to hang out with Aerosmith? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to hang out with Aerosmith. Let's do it, man. And it just kept snowballing to where I made friends with, everybody. You just do. It takes a lot of time. I mean, this is like most of my life that I've been doing this. I eventually got to be friends with most of my favorite people that I look up to and admire. So that alone, dude, just the experiences alone are just an embarrassment of riches. That everywhere I go, I book shows and I make sure that I wait for a time frame that there's a concert or a sporting event that's going on. And I want to make sure to have fun in every city that I go to. When I was, the couple of times I've been up there to Edmonton, it was to once to see a Kiss show, once to see a Metallica show. I mean, it's a big reason why I'm not famous, but I'm having fun because I'm going to shows all over the place and sporting events. So I love it.
How did you end up living at Eddie Van Halen's studio or guest house or whatever it was?
It was a guy that used to work for Dunlop. The only hobby I've ever had in my life was collecting guitar picks. That and cocaine. But collecting guitar picks was a big hobby. And I have thousands of guitar picks from everybody over the last 30 years, 40 years. A friend of mine who worked for Dunlop, Dunlop makes a lot of those personalized guitar picks that have the signatures on them.
Yeah.
He was a big Howard Stern fan, and I'm a big pick collector. And I said, dude, I collect guitar picks. And he goes, man, we exchanged phone numbers, and we would talk from time to time, and he hooked me up with guitar picks. And then I saw him backstage at a Scorpions Dokken concert in Los Angeles.
Klaus Meine.
By the way, I saw him, dude, I swear to God, this is a quote. Eddie Trunk was standing right next to me when this happened. We're watching the Scorpions, and Klaus Meine goes, all right, how are you doing tonight, Las Vegas? And he goes, okay, yeah, me, not so good. And I just started laughing hysterically. And then, and Eddie, I didn't know this. Eddie goes, oh, well, he's had a lot of back surgeries. He actually had to cancel a couple tours. I go, oh, I didn't know. Well, why the fuck is he bringing it up? Like, nobody wants to hear about your fucking problems, Klaus. Yeah. Well, my wife, she took the kids, What the fuck? Came here to have a good time. I want to rock you like a hurricane, Klaus. But it was backstage at a Scorpions Dokken concert. And I see my buddy from Dunlop, and he's introducing me to everybody backstage at the show. Like, hey, I'm going to do you a solid. I'm going to introduce you to all these people. And, everyone he's introducing me to. Like, he goes, hey, this is blah, blah, blah. And I went, your name is on the Blizzard of Oz credits and the album credits. Like, I'm recognizing all these names, and I'm a total music nerd. And then at one point he goes, shit, hey, I'm going to introduce you to this guy over here. This guy lives with one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, but don't tell him I told you this. And he walks me over and he goes, hey, Maddie, this is my buddy Craig Guest. He goes, I don't know if you are a fan of Howard Stern or this show or that show. Craig's a comedian. This guy turned around and said, oh, dude, I am your biggest fan. And I go, oh, get the fuck out of here. And he goes, nah, man. He goes, as a matter of fact, he starts naming gigs that he came to see me in Hollywood over the years. And so we hung out and we hit it off, and we exchanged phone numbers, and we made plans to go bowling a week later. And he showed up at the bowling alley with Eddie Van Halen. And I was just like, what the fuck? And he showed up with Eddie Van Halen, and turns out I started putting the pieces together that this guy is Eddie Van Halen's assistant. He lives in a guest house on the same property. He runs the 5150 Studios, which is also on the same property. And this guy is such a fan of the Howard Stern show that he gets up every morning at 5:30 in the morning to go into the studio, turn on the radio, and work. And he listens to all 5 hours of the show every day. So when I started getting on the show, he starts telling Eddie, dude, there's this guy. He does like this crazy Paul Stanley impression. And then a week later, oh my God, that same guy does a crazy Gilbert Gottfried impression. And then a week later, oh my God, the same guy does a Lars Ulrich impression, and on and on and on and on. And so at the bowling alley, Eddie Van Halen's smoking a cigarette, and he's fucking telling me my whole story. And it was weird. He's like secondhand relating my life story back to me. And I mean, I've said this before, but it really is incredible, this moment that he had where he started telling me a story that I had told on the air to Howard. Howard was taking credit for my whole career, as he should. And I interrupted him and said, oh, Howard, dude, I've been broke my entire life before I got here. And by the way, all I've ever wanted in my life to own, because I realized I could never own anything. So I never set my sights on anything because I knew I could never have anything. The one goal I've always had was just to have an illegal cable box. That's all I've ever wanted, was one of those illegal cable boxes that will unscramble all the channels. And I finally was able to afford one. You send like $300 to this PO box. It's very sketchy. And like, it must have been 4-6 weeks later. I got this box in the mail. I opened it up, and it just had instructions. It looked very shady. And then I connected it, followed the instructions, and I went right to the porn channel, and I was like, oh my God, I got it. Like, everything unscrambled. And I'm at the bowling alley with Eddie Van Halen, and he goes, dude, you broke your whole life. Me too. I grew up in the fucking ghetto. And I heard that, is this true? That you always wanted an illegal cable box? And I go, that is true. And I actually got one. I have an illegal cable box now. And he goes, that's crazy, because they looked both ways, and he went, I got an illegal cable box too. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. The thing is, I'm fucking rich, but don't want to pay for cable. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Are you serious? And then the night goes on, and we have all these weird little moments there, and including 5th or 6th frame. Eddie goes, I'm going to go play foosball. And I go, dude, we're in the 5th frame. You got a few more to go. And he goes, okay, I want to play foosball. And I go, you can't walk away from the 5th frame, dude. You got like 4 more throws, and then you're done. And he goes, I'm going to go play foosball. And he just walked away. And I'm like, dude, don't fucking walk away in the middle of the 5th frame. And then the night ends with, like, he goes and plays foosball for a while. We start up another game. He comes back over and he goes, hey, it was nice to meet you. When I get out of here, he looks at his assistant. He goes, I love you. And he, like, very European, kissed him right on the lips. I love you. Hey, the guy from Dunlop, I love you. Right on the lips. And then my friend Dave Lee, who's a guitar tech, he's standing right in front of me, and Dave's back is to me. And I see Eddie like, and Dave goes back and back. And then right at the end, I'm in this perfect spot to see him go. Like, he puckered right at the very end. And when we left that night, I guess Dave must have been driving me the night, because we went out to his car, and I went, dude, you fucking puckered for Eddie Van Halen. And Dave goes, dude, it's Eddie Van Halen, man. I'm going to pucker for fucking Eddie. Yeah. Over the course of the next year and a half, I'm giving you a very long-winded response to this, but over the course of the next year and a half or so, I would go hang out with Maddie, Ed's assistant, up at the 5150 studios, and then Ed would show up, and then we'd all hang out and talk and laugh. And then I got in this really toxic relationship that ended horribly. And this girl, we were at a party. I left for a couple minutes to go pee. I came back. She's making out with a guy at the bar. And I just stood there, and I just watched her make out with a guy, just waiting for her to acknowledge me. And then she finally looked at me, and she was like, oh, this is my boyfriend. And I just went, no. And I went in the other room, and I called up Maddie, and I said, dude, you're not going to believe this. And he goes, hold on. He goes, Ed wants to talk to you. Ed got on the phone. He goes, dude, I told you she was a fucking skank. And I go, yeah. And he goes, you're living with her. The fuck are you living with her for, man? And I said, she's the only person I know in this town besides you guys. And he goes, dude, pack up your shit, move in with me. And I said, can I do that? And he said, yeah.
You can sleep in the recording studio. Just don't tell anybody. But the band's getting back together. So it's going to be noisy at night, you know? And I went, so the only thing I have to worry about is the fact that Van Halen is going to be playing in the next room. And he goes, well, now you got your TV show. Because I was working on a new TV show at the time called Las Vegas with Alec Baldwin and James Caan. Like that first few weeks at the house at that recording studio where I was spending all day long on a TV set telling jokes to Alec Baldwin and James Caan. And then every night I would come home and I could hear him in the next room. I'd knock on the door and I'd go, hey, buddy, I just got home. Is it okay if I listen for a little bit before I go to bed? And every night he'd go, dude, I'm fucking lonely. Come on in. And I'd walk in and I'd listen to him play. And yeah, it was very, very surreal. 22 years ago that was. And I was living at his house. And a very sad PS is a year later, I found out that Ed's assistant had been fucking my girlfriend the entire time. And they ended up together. They were together for like 5-6 years. They almost got married. And I was so thrown by that I was like, oh man, I didn't call Maddie. I didn't call Ed. But this weird thing happened years later where I thought I had heard that Ed got sober and I'm sober. So I was like, I'm going to call him. And I called him and he took the phone and he said, hello. And I go, hey man, what's going on? He goes, who's this? I go, it's Craig Gass. And he goes, hey man, how you doing? And I go, I'm doing good. How are you doing? And he goes, I'm sitting on the toilet taking a shit. And I went, oh, do you want me to call you back later? And he goes, no, talk to me. What's going on? I go, I can call you later. I could just, and he goes, oh man, talk to me. Come on, let's have a conversation. What's going on? And I go, how are you doing? You doing all right? And he goes, I'm doing good. How about you? And I go, I'll call you later, man. And I hung up and I was like, I'm not going to fucking, and then, in those last, you start hearing rumors that, he's not doing well, that his health is going really bad. So I made attempts to reach out to him in that last year, but found out later from another mutual friend who's also a comedian who was friends with Eddie. He said, don't take it personally because in the last year that Eddie was alive, he was nonverbal. He was not able to speak. So it was crazy that a guy who was such a hermit was letting me into his life. I mean, dude, I remember he had a cancer guy that used to come over once a week to give him a drip. He was fighting cancer and beating it with these alternative medicines. He was bankrolling a cancer place up in Long Island that he would visit from time to time. And he had a guy who would come over. And the first time that guy came over, I was on the couch in the studio of the recording studio. Door opened. This guy walked in, and I was like, and I stood up and I was like, "Hey, I'm Craig. I'm a comedian. I'm just staying here. I'm friends with Maddie." And then Ed walked in behind him and goes, "Dude, what the fuck? You're not my friend?" And I go, "Oh, well, I didn't want to assume, And he goes, "Dude, you're living in my fucking house." And I go, yeah, that's true. And he goes, "I love you." And I go, "I love you too, Ed." Yeah.
Did you pucker? Did you pucker right
I
there?
didn't pucker. You know what? I don't think I ever kissed him on the lips. I don't remember ever kissing him on the lips. But he was an incredibly kind and affectionate person. He came to the Comedy Store with me every night when, especially as I got in there in January of 2004. And then around March of 2004, Alex started showing up because they were recording an album. It was a best of Van Halen album that had 2 new tracks with Sammy. And then they were going to tour. And Alex started showing up. Alex seemed to be very much the business-minded guy. I noticed that on the computer in the studio when I would try to get online, there would be websites with stage designs. We can do this or we can do this, and Alex was making those decisions. There was also samples of T-shirts laying around the studio. We could do shirts like this or and it was Alex that was making decisions about that. And then when Alex would come over, man,
it was just story time. It was like we'd all hang out and just stand around and just tell stories. And Alex was one of the best storytellers. And then I'd go, all right, hey, man, I got to go. I got to go to the Comedy Store. There's an open mic. I got to take off. And Eddie would follow me out and go, hey, I'll come with you. We'll go hang out. I go, it's a weird move to show up at an open mic with Eddie Van Halen. That's just I go, but dude, please, when I do my show, like I always would do a big show in Hollywood on Valentine's Day. I moved it to Hawaii, and now I'm in Hawaii every year for Valentine's Day. But I used to do Valentine's Day at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. And I said, wait till my Valentine's Day show. So he came to the Valentine's Day show, and then he hung out with all the comedians, which, by the way, there's another, I know I'm going on and rambling about this, but it was a very surreal time in my life to be able to have that moment. As a Van Halen fan, I had this one surreal moment where came home from shooting that show, Las Vegas, and he's in the studio, and we're just talking. He was getting out of a relationship with a girl that he had been dating, not Valerie. That relationship was long over.
Yeah,
but he had been dating this other girl, and they had broken up. So we're commiserating over this pain. And then in the middle of it, he just went, hang on a second. Let me just finish this real quick. And he just pushed record. He played a solo. And then I watched him play, and I said, you know what, man? Like, seeing you live so many times, and the highlight of every show I ever saw was in the middle of your guitar solo when you would play that piece called Cathedral. And he said, dude, sit down. And I said, no, I wasn't trying to get you to play it. He goes, no, Craig, sit down. And he played me a 10, 15-minute version of Cathedral, and I just sat and just watched him play. And I was like, damn, like, it's just, it was very surreal. And there's so many more stories, though. I mean, beyond Eddie, there's so many crazy right place, right time moments. So I'm covering them all. I'm starting to record, and I'm getting everybody that was there, and I'm getting everybody to share what they witnessed and adding to these incredible stories. And there's so many of them. So, and then the 2 comedy specials, and then I'm launching another podcast with my buddy Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch, who just got off the tour with Metallica, and
so did Wolfie Van Halen
and Wolfie. Yeah. My buddy, I have a buddy who's with him in that band, and last time I saw Wolfie, last time I had a conversation with Wolfie, he was 12 years old and went bowling.
Yeah,
that night. So
a lot of bowling in the Van Halen family. It's very odd.
Yeah, man, it's fucking great though.
Go to the website getgas.com for more with Craig Gass, and where I see you're doing a lot of Vegas stuff at Kimmel's Club coming up, and other things always get dotted in and plunked in here and there during the schedule. And of course, like you were saying, the 2 comedy specials on the way.
Yeah, man, a lot of great things are happening in 2025. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. We'll catch up again because I know you've got more stories. And
yeah, man, dude, you've always been really nice to me. I need to get back out there to do a show. I've always had fun up there, and but you've always, because we not only hang out, like you always let me come in and do whatever in the studio, but you would spend time with me, and I really, really appreciated that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, hanging out with good people, it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks for doing this too. I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Looking forward to next time.
Pucker up, man.
What the fuck? Come on.
All right. Love you, man. We'll talk soon.
Love you too. I'll see you.
Reluctantly.
Today's podcast brought to you by the Clayton Bellamy Foundation for the Arts, supporting education and community-based programs in the province of Alberta by providing financial support to arts programs in need. ClaytonBellamyFoundation.org.
Reluctantly.